All right, in this first lesson of Rhythm Bootcamp, we are going to learn about 4 of our basic note values as well as how we count them, and we can apply this to reading music. So let's start with our 4 basic values. The first note we have is something called a quarter note. It looks like this, where it's a colored in circle with a stem coming up the note. Now, if you're reading music, sometimes the stem will also be coming down on the note. It doesn't matter whether it's going up or down on the side. All that matters is that the circle of it is colored in and it has the stem. These notes, quarter notes, get a value of 1. That means we hold them down for 1 beat. Now the next note that we have is something called a half note. It looks almost the same as our quarter note, a circle with the stem coming up, except these circles are not colored in. These are called half notes, and these get a value of 2 beats. 1, 2. So this would tell us to hold down our note for 2 beats. The next value we have is a dotted half note. It looks exactly the same as our half note here, except it has a dot on the side. These get a value of 3 beats. 1, 2, 3. And finally, we have whole notes. These are just circles that are not colored in, and they get a value of 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's important to note the quarter note can hold for 1 beat. The half note holds for 2 beats, 1, 2. The dotted half note lasts for 3 beats, 1, 2, 3. And the whole note will hold for 4 beats, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, what are these beats that I'm referring to have to do with something in sheet music called a time signature. At the beginning of every song you'll ever read in music, or just even if you're not reading it, these still exist, you will see 2 numbers, one on top, one on bottom. They will match for the right hand music and the left. The number we want to pay attention to right now is the number that's always on top. And when we're doing our practice assignments, you won't see right hand and left hand, you'll just see single line. But I'll explain how we do this in our practice assignment lesson. So what we want to know is that if there is a 2 on the top number, that is telling us every measure of music will only have 2 beats. If we look at another example, here we can see there's a 3 on top. That will tell us every measure of music has 3. We can see 3 of our quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, and then it's a new measure. Don't worry about all the other symbols just yet. We'll get into all of them. But this shows us something that has 3 beats in a measure. And then finally, we can also have 4 beats in a measure, where we will hold for 4 beats every measure, and then we will have a new measure. So we won't get into these examples of playing the songs right now. We want to focus more on just counting beats. So there can be, like I said, 2/4 time signature, where there's 2 beats in a measure, 3/4 time signature, where there's 3 beats in a measure, and 4/4 time signature, where there's 4 beats in the measure. Like I said, don't worry about this bottom number just yet. For now, it'll stay consistent as being a 4. The one that's going to change that we have to pay attention to is the number that's on top, the 2, the 3, and the 4. Now, as can be noted, right, if there's only 2 beats in a measure, we actually can never use our dotted half note or our whole note because these last for 3 and 4, we can only have 2. So when you're reading music in 2/4 time, you will only see quarter notes and half notes. So let's learn how we write in beat numbers, because that's what you'll be doing in your practice assignment, and so how these get counted. Let's say we have a measure of music that has quarter note, and then a new measure, half note, quarter note, and half note. Let's just say this was our song. Now, once again, we are not learning about notes in the song. We're simply learning about counting and rhythm. So because we have 2 quarter notes and there's 2 beats in a measure, that means we want to count every measure as 1, 2. We need to count 2 beats for every measure. So because this is a quarter note, it takes up 1 beat and we're at the start of our measure, this would receive beat number 1. This is taking up the first out of 2 beats in this measure. This quarter note also receives 1 beat, so this will be beat number 2. It is taking up the second beat in the measure. Now, when we get to the next measure, we start our counting over. We're back to 1. We're in a new measure, 2 beats every measure. Our half note takes up 2 beats. So the way this would count would be, it would start on beat 1, and it would continue holding for the second beat, because this note lasts for 2 beats. When we get into the next measure, just like the first, this will take up the first beat of the measure. This will take up the second. They're each taking up one of the counts in our measure because they receive 1 count each. And when we get here, just like this measure, it will happen on beat number 1 and continue holding through the second beat. All right, now we will do examples of this and how we will actually play this because, as I mentioned, we are not learning about notes, so we're not going to play any notes on the piano. We're going to learn to clap when we play, so our clapping is going to play these beats. Let's do some more examples in 3/4 and 4/4 time. So now that we have 3 beats in a measure, the only note we will not see is our whole note because they get 4 beats and we can only have up to 3 in a measure. So now we'll start seeing these 3 values. Now we can have more combinations of notes. For example, the first measure might look something like this: half note, quarter note. Perhaps the second measure is a dotted half note, and the next measure is quarter note, quarter note, quarter note. So let's see how we count these measures. Well, we're at the start of our first measure, so that we know this will receive the first beat, right? We're counting 1, 2, 3. So the first beat of this measure will go to the half note. Now, as we recall, half notes hold for 2 counts, so it will also take up the second beat. So I'm going to write 2 there in that empty space, showing that half note will continue holding. And then all we have left over is the third beat, which works perfectly because these only take up 1 beat. So this quarter note will take up the third beat in this measure. And now you're at the new measure. A dotted half note takes up 3 beats, so it will get all the counts in this measure: 1, 2, 3. When we get to our next measure, this quarter note will take up the first beat, this quarter note will take up the second beat, and this quarter note will take up the third beat. All right, so that is that example. And as I mentioned, we will go through these and clap these out so you can see, and I will re-explain this when we do the practice assignment. Now we get to our measure, our example with 4 beats in a measure. So now any values can be used, and any combination can be used as long as it adds up to 4. There's so many different combinations that can happen. But let's just say in the first measure, it goes like this: half note, quarter note, quarter note. Maybe the second measure is quarter note, half note, quarter note. And then our third measure is half note, and our last measure is a whole note. So now we're going to count to 4 in each measure: 1, 2, 3, 4. So here we are at the start of our measure. This is a half note, which will take up 2 beats. So it'll start on beat number 1 and continue holding for the second beat of the measure. It'll take up the first 2 beats. This quarter note here will take up the third beat and only take up 1 of those beats because it's a quarter note. And then this one will take up beat number 4. We get to our new measure. This quarter note will take up the first beat of the measure and only take up that because it only receives 1 beat. This half note will happen on beat 2 and continue holding for beat 3 because it takes up 2 beats in a measure. And then finally, this last quarter note will happen on beat 4. When we get here, this half note will take up beat number 1 and continue holding for number 2. And then what we're left over with is 3 and 4, which works perfect. This will happen on beat 3, continue holding for beat 4. And then lastly, the whole note will take up the whole measure: 1, 2, 3, 4, because it receives 4 counts. So as I mentioned, these are not the only possible combinations. There are so many combinations. You can have a dotted half note and a quarter note in a measure because that adds up to 4. Every measure always needs to add up to 4. So if you're ever doing this and writing in your beat numbers in your practice assignment and it doesn't add up to 4, or you have a note left over, you must have done something wrong. And there will always be answer keys for these practice assignments, but I encourage you to always try it out on your own first and then use the answer key to see if you did it correctly. So that is all for this lesson in how we count beats and now understand how these note values take up beats per measure. Now, when I say we're going to clap these notes, and like I said, I will explain this again in the practice assignment, what we need to do is we need to use something called a metronome. A metronome is a device that counts beats steadily for us. So here's my metronome at a speed of 70 beats per minute. This is a nice slow speed that I encourage you to try your exercises at. So if we do this first example, if I only need to clap a note for 1 beat, I would just do this first measure like this. I'll wait for the metronome, and then I'll go 1, 2. That would be the first measure. When we have longer notes to hold out, such as our half notes, dotted half notes, or whole notes, we hold our claps. So what I mean by this is if I did this measure, I would wait to start on beat 1 and go 1, 2, and then release the clap. All right, so let me play through this first example here for you. So I'll count myself in. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. Feel free to try that one out on your own if you want by pausing the video, turning on your own metronome, and giving it a try. Or, as I mentioned, I will explain all the different examples in our practice assignment. Now let's move on to the 3/4 time. So now my counting is going to go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. There is that second example. And now the final example here, I will do the 1 and 4/4 time. So now my counting is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is how we use the metronome. Each metronome's click is worth a value of 1. So if I'm playing multiple quarter notes in a row, I clap with each click. If I need to hold one out for 2, I would hit on one click and hold it for the second click, as I did in the examples. As I mentioned, we will go over all these in our first practice assignment, and the more you do this, the easier and easier and easier it will get. Now, at the end of this course, once we've learned all of our different possible note values and just different ways to count and clap, we will jump into how we actually learn to apply this to reading music when we're doing two hands together, left and right. Don't worry about that for now. For now, focus on just getting really good with your 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4 time by doing the practice assignment, which we will go over in the next lesson. That is all for this lesson. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the practice assignment whenever you're ready.